Welcome to Two Nerds in the Truck, TLDR. We're talking about Pinery Provincial Park in winter camping today.
Yeah, so this is actually our third winter camping trip of the season. We'd already been up to Mew Lake earlier this year and then McGregor for the holidays. And we had barely gotten back from McGregor the first time around when they announced the opening of their skating rink. So we pretty much turned around and went right back. Because there was snow kind of in the area, we decided to tack a trip onto Pinery at the end of that trip. This actually was our third trip to Pinery. We had gone last February for one of our first winter camping attempts. There was no winter to be had at that time. And then we went back at May long weekend because I was not paying attention to what weekend it was when we booked at the biggest, most popular uh, provincial park in the area. So we've had interesting experiences at Pinery. But yeah, we got one day on the end of our McGregor trip.
Yep, definitely got one good day. Then it started raining, so we kind of lost the snow after that, but let's tell you all about it. So Pinery is in the town of Grand Bend. It's just on the south end of Lake Huron. It's a couple hours south of McGregor Point Provincial Park, and it's about 2 hours sort of west-ish of Hamilton. So we booked online the morning we went.
Yeah, so there were none of the 7 a.m. Hunger Games needed for a winter stay because barely anyone stays there in the winter. Uh, Generally speaking, and as we saw in our May trip, Pinery can be a bit of a logistical nightmare. That did follow through on our winter stay this time around, just for completely different reasons than in May. So this is going to end up a bit of a rant because I'm a logistics nerd and I like information to be consistent and available. So registration check-in went fast and easy as normal. The woman wasn't quite as friendly and welcoming as some of the other ones were, but that was our second time we've kind of experienced that at Pinery, so I don't know if that's just a Pinery thing or not. Anyways, let's look at maps and signage. So there is an overwhelming amount of information presented when you check into Pinery, whether it's in the fall or the spring trip that we did before or winter. Last winter, we actually got 3 maps when we checked in, and it was the overall map, which these were each 11 by 17 pages, double-sided. So one was the overall park map and information. Then there was one just for the campground we were in that was double-sided with all the information on that because there are a ton of campsites in this campground. And then on top of that, we were given a winter trails map. Now, this time when we went to check in, apparently they're not printing the winter trails map, which sucks because if you're there for winter, you should be able to see what's on the go. Now, she did give us the summer information. The problem is a lot of the roads are gated off in the winter, and the summer roads, the summer map doesn't show you any of that. So the map you get is highly inaccurate. You combine that with really abysmal signage in the park, and it's rough to get around your first time around. You know, once you're there, once you realize that, you know, half of the big loop of the park is gated off. Now, the thing is when you're approaching that first roundabout, it'll direct you off to the right for, you know, the beach or day use or whatever. And there's nothing there. It's not gated off right at that point. So it directs you that way. And if you don't already know that it's gated like half a block over that way, you can find yourself stuck. And it's just stuff like that. There's a lot of it that happens, and it's really annoying to me. So a lot of cases, the signage that does point you somewhere kind of gets you to the general area if you want to go, and then kind of dumps you off there. And the best examples I have are the toboggan run. Now, last time we knew that there was a toboggan run because we'd seen the sign by the Riverside campground, right? And it pointed to the same direction as the park store. So I had just assumed, because it was fall weather, there was no tobogganing to be had at the time.
Yeah.
I had assumed that the toboggan run was somehow in the park store area because I'd seen no other signage about this toboggan area, and it honestly was not going to apply that year anyway, so it wasn't really something I thought about. So this year, when there is snow, I'm like, okay, we have to go to that parking lot to see what the toboggan run's like, and it wasn't there. And there's no more, like, there's this big road that goes between the Riverside campground and the front of the park. And there's no signage along there until you get to the dump area that says anything about the toboggan run. So you assume you passed it when you passed that first time by the Riverside campground. So when you get by the dump station, and there actually is a sign that says the toboggan area, but it's only one of like, I think there's 3 signs there, and then one of the other signs mentions chalet, but it doesn't say tobogganing, and it takes you into the dump area, and then it doesn't tell you where to go from that, and you actually have to go over to the right, and there's a big parking lot that kind of shoots off of the main area, and the toboggan runs back there, but there's no signage once you get into the general area. And it's the same with the dump station. It brings you to the big parking lot, and there's several offshoots everywhere. There's one sign that kind of points you towards the left, and then that turns into a 3-way split, and it doesn't tell you where the dump station is from there. So it's a lot of, I wouldn't want to go through there with a trailer my first time. It's just, it's poor logistics. And I find that that's the case with a lot of things. Our first trip there, and actually several times this time, when you're pulling into the riverside, the signage for the sites that are in there, you kept driving right past it because the sign's really small and it's hard to see. So it's just, it's not very well thought out. I think that, as you were saying that you think that a lot of the issues in this park
Right.
are.
So, yeah, I was saying that I think that the people who set up the signs and the maps and things are people that know the park very, very well. And that does us a disservice if you don't know it really well. So I feel like what these parks,
like, they're not defining things. They're not.
Yeah.
They're making assumptions as to what people know.
I feel like the park should have like a reciprocity agreement and check each other's stuff as a newbie, like us.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other thing is that there's discrepancies between all of the information sources. So there's the Winter Trails map when you download online. And honestly, there's a whole thing with that. I feel like if you're going to camp in the winter, you're paying as much as you do in the summer. You should be able to get a map that has the current information on it without having to go online. Not everyone's set up to download a map online. Not everyone's going to want to check a map on their phone when they're out looking for the trails and everything. And a lot of people go camping to disconnect from that altogether. So to only find out when you get there that you don't get a map unless you download it, I'm not really cool with that, I mean, it's fine for us. It's just, it rubs me the wrong way, But then there's discrepancies between the map and reality and the website. I don't know if the website's just not getting updated or if there's some kind of, kink in communication between the different, I guess, sections of Ontario parks that deal with things. But it doesn't all line up, and that's kind of frustrating. Like, just things like you're told about 2 trails that are open for hiking on the website. There's actually a third that they tell you about when you get there, saying, okay, well, there's only 3 trails open. The third trail isn't mentioned on the website in any way at all, except for being present on the map. So it doesn't have the trail description and whatnot. There's discrepancies on how many yurts are available. It's just, there's no editing being done, I guess. There's no fact checking, and it's frustrating because you're trying to go like, well, which one's the most current thing? Or just like, hey, I want to do this trail, but I've got 0 information on it, Anyway, I could rant about the logistics of this place forever. How about you talk about waste and water services?
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit. Once you find the easy to find toboggan run, you're right next to the waste and water. So it's
the waste.
You're right. So you go in this really long parking lot, and sort of in the back of it, it's easy to kind of go down the wrong branch. There's not a lot of great signage, like you had mentioned. But once you get there, you pull up. It's a single dump station. In the winter, they actually had the entire water post taken out.
Which was part of the issue I found, because if you go to the general area in the summer, you can see that water post and you go, okay, there's the dump station, and you don't have that visual indicator in the winter.
Yeah. One of the odd things about Pinery in general is it sort of goes to 1 lane and then veers out to 2 lanes again near the dump station. So if you take it as a loop and go back on the same path, if there were a bunch of traffic, you could end up blocking it. There is a way you could turn right to kind of go down, but it's not clear that you should do that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think to avoid congestion, they really should have a sign directing you off to that like side parking that I think is for that ski trailhead that's in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems. I'm going to say this is going to end up a really negative review, just because if we look at things section by section, there's a lot of things wrong with Pinery, and I just want to say that Pinery as a park is nice enough. There's lots to do and whatever. My frustrations with Pinery are human in nature. It's, poor signage, it's poor information, it's poor upkeep on snow plowing, and that's spoilers. But you know what I mean? So it's like all of my issues are human error, human negligence, whatever. It's a beautiful park. You
It is.
know, it's just there are some bizarre choices being made.
The operations could use a little bit of help there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's bizarre to me because you'd expect something like the park that shall not be named, that is like the worst park we've ever been to. We went there and there's like no one there, you know? And you think, well, this is in the middle of nowhere. It probably gets no funding. I think we heard somewhere later that it didn't get any funding, whatever. Pinery is huge. Pinery has over 1,000 campsites and is completely difficult, like impossible to get into in the summer because it's booked solid. Like has got to be no shortage of funding and human resources and stuff going to the site, to this campground. So
Yeah.
the amount of mistakes being made, I do not understand. You know what I mean? They have to have so much staff working there for that size of a campground.
Right.
You know? So anyway, it's
So-
frustrating. Wasting water.
Yeah. So we didn't need to fill up on water on our trip. It's not available at the dump station. Is it available at
Yeah,
the
there's a
comfort
tap
station?
at the comfort station, but it's outside,
Okay.
which is kind of odd. So I think it's a good idea to bring your own water. You just, I don't know, the taps on the outside of the water seem kind of less sanitary to me because you don't know what's going on outside.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have an issue, but I see your point. So it is available, comfort station.
I mean, I've kind of seen how people treat the dump station water section and stuff, and I don't know. I just picture people getting their dogs to drink straight out of the tap or something where it's outside. I don't know. Snow removal. So we should preface this with, we had come there like directly from McGregor, and McGregor is really good about snow removal. So we might
They
be
are.
princesses here. We might have high standards, but I think honestly, we kind of did ourselves a bit of a disservice by going to McGregor first, because every winter camping experience we've had so far gets measured against McGregor, and McGregor does things right for the most part.
Definitely.
So
The main roads they took care of. They plowed and they sanded. I believe they don't use salt, probably because of the preservation kind of aspect.
right.
But they do use sand, and they were keeping up pretty well on it. We even saw them plowing a parking lot on a day that it wasn't even open, that section,
Yeah.
in advance. So I was happy about that. The campgrounds, however,
Oh man.
what do you think about the campground plowing?
The plowing, I think there needs to be a giant set of quotation marks around plowing there. It was terrible.
I didn't notice any indication that they had plowed it at all. I saw ruts, of course, where people had driven. I didn't see any, like,
The main one that goes into Riverside and goes by the comfort station looked like maybe it had been plowed sometime,
Okay.
not in the recent past, but at some point. The other ones, I don't know that it had been plowed. Like the campground roads that go up to all the sites, I don't know that they'd ever plowed that.
Right. It didn't look like it to me. And, how much snow did they have? Was it 8 centimeters maybe?
Something like that.
So it was significant. It was enough where obviously they plowed the main roads. They should have plowed the other ones. And like
There was a big bank in the middle, like right in front of the comfort station. There's like a bank of snow in the middle of the road.
That's right, there was. Yeah. And, like I just mentioned a minute ago, they were plowing a parking lot for a section that wasn't even open in advance. It was like, it was Friday. It was going to be open on Saturday, but yet they hadn't plowed.
To be fair, that's a
road.
trailhead though. That was the visitor center, and it's open as the trailhead.
Oh, that's fine.
But I mean, they plowed the whole thing. That is a big parking lot.
Exactly.
And they were being pristine about that. But yeah, to get to your campsite, if you have a little car like we do, like you can, we provided a bit of a show for some people there.
Yeah, there were some folks that were entertained by us trying to get up. It wasn't even a very big hill.
I mean, hill is being generous.
Yeah,
it was a slight incline, and we couldn't get up because there was so much snow, and it was just a campground road, and it was, I don't know, I feel like we shouldn't have to ask for a push. We shouldn't have to worry to ask for a push or have to get out and push the car in a campground road. It's bizarre to me. Connectivity. Our internet has been weird at this park.
It has.
Because there's been times where we've had absolutely no internet anywhere in the park, and then this recent time we're on Rogers Wireless. This recent time I had excellent internet everywhere. You know?
I don't remember really having an issue anywhere. I wasn't on it except for the RV, but I think
even on the beach, like everywhere I checked the phone, there was connectivity. And last time And I mean, it could have had something to do with the fact that last time was in May and there were a lot of people there. But the only time I could get internet was on the beach, sometimes to a little degree. Like it was crap internet, but I could kind of check the weather. You know what I mean? But this we had fantastic. So maybe it's just better in the winter. Maybe it had something to do with weather. I don't know. But
Yep,
I would say plan for the worst and hope for the best because you don't know what you're going to get there.
that's always a good plan.
Okay.
All right, so accessibility. This is definitely your area of expertise. What do you think?
So Pinery is not a super accessible campground, although it's so close to being able to be pretty accessible, and it just seems like there's some pretty ignorant mistakes being made. In the summertime, I noticed that like one thing I had said was that I think that Pinery, their accessibility options seem to be that someone had a list of barriers and would check them off. So they'd say, well, there's a barrier-free toilet in the comfort station. So there's a barrier-free comfort station where that comfort station would be like up on a bit of a riser and no, clear path. Like a wheelchair couldn't get up to it for a lot of the comfort stations. So it would be barrier-free in theory at the building, but getting up to it was an issue. And I find that a lot of the things in general are kind of on that same theme where it's like on paper it could be barrier free, but there are actual barriers there. Uh, so the comfort station in Riverside is barrier free. It is difficult to get up to it, especially in the winter, because they don't really have a cleared path there, and there's no accessible parking. So if it is a busy day, you don't actually have guaranteed parking to get in there. The barrier-free stall in the comfort station was disgusting. It smelled like a cloud of cigarette just opening the door, and it was not in good shape. So I don't know what was going on there, but it was pretty gross. The yurts and the cabins that we saw were all listed as being barrier free and they had ramps. Again, like the snowplow situation going up to it renders all of that not accessible. You're not going to be able to wheel to your car. You're not going to be able to wheel from your site to the comfort station. It's not wheelchair accessible. So as barrier free as the actual yurt itself might be or the cabin might be, getting to and from it is not. The visitor center is also listed as barrier free, and inside it's definitely wheelchair accessible. The long ramp up to it was mostly shoveled, so it's probably wheelchair accessible in the winter. It's probably going to be a workout. But the thing is, I feel like they use barrier free also to be specifically wheelchair, and that the ramp is very, very long and pretty steep in areas. So if you've got mobility issues that do not have you in a wheelchair, like for me, my tendons, long ramps like that are quite difficult for me. It'd be nice if there was just kind of like a short staircase off to one side so you had the option of just going up because stairs aren't easy, but they're a lot easier than a really long ramp. Um, you know, the Cedar Trail, by the way, is listed as being barrier free. That's the one that's at the comfort station area. That doesn't apply in winter. So anything you see as far as barrier free on the website, that is summer that they're talking about. It's not necessarily going to apply in the winter. For instance, you can't get down to the beach in the winter. It's not plowed. It's nothing. The other thing to consider is that the trails are all marked. The ones that are marked as easy are moderate in the winter just because of snow cover. So if you've got any kind of mobility issues or whatever, just make sure that you know that the trails, you should probably add a difficulty rating to what's listed. I think that's all I have to say about the barrier free. It's just I feel like things could be a little bit better. I think maybe they don't have a disabled person looking at what they're doing before they mark things as being barrier free.
All right, for pets, as with all the provincial parks, dogs are allowed. They have to be leashed at all times. Pinery says do not leave them alone because of the cold weather. It can be stressful for them. So that's always good advice, I think. Unfortunately, there's not a lot for them to do in the winter. There is a dog beach, but it's in the section that's gated off, and dogs are not allowed on the other beaches.
And it's way gated off too. It's not like it's like a block walk along the road. It's way in there.
Yeah. So the winter map says that they're not allowed on the ski trails except for the skate ski trail. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's likely that they're allowed on the other hiking trails. In fact, I saw plenty of dog prints and even a dog there.
I wouldn't go by that though, because we saw dogs on the main beach. We know they're not supposed to be there.
True.
But anyways, the thing at the park says the way the winter camping brochure thing online says, it almost makes it sound like they're not allowed on any trails at all aside from the ski trail, but I'm pretty sure they are allowed on the hiking trails. You just might want to check that if you're going to bring a dog.
Absolutely. What about parking? How was that?
Oh, so the parking I think is pretty good. I mean, even in the summer, we noticed that there was tons of parking for everything, it seemed like. And here, in the winter, there were barely anyone there either of the times we were there in winter. And the parking lots are pretty big. Some of the trailheads have smaller parking, but it was still plenty for the amount of people using them at any time. And as we'd mentioned earlier, they were plowed well. So there's no real complaints on parking there.
All right.
Miscellaneous, I guess we talk about the sky because that's what we tend to do for Miscellaneous.
Yeah, we love to go check out the Aurora Borealis when it's glowing. The beach mostly faces north, which is really good in theory. We've seen a lot of really amazing photos of Aurora there. Unfortunately, the northern lights did not hit during any of our stays.
Well, they might have hit this time. I don't know. We wouldn't have known because it was full cloud.
Right. Okay. We didn't get an opportunity to see it during our stays. Pinery is famous for the sunsets. One of the top beaches in the world for sunsets. I think
Nat Geo says that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely check that out. It's worthwhile. It really is.
So now, one thing to keep in mind though is that the sunsets are really famous from the beach, and people tend to go to the beach, even if it's just that Beach 9, the only one that's available during the winter. But I find it's so far to the left that you actually in the winter can get a better view of the sunset over the old Ausable Channel. So when you want to go there, it's a bridge that's between the visitor center and the Riverside campground, and we just had a spectacular view of it when we were there. Just amazing.
We did, yeah. We checked it out. We got some good photos and video, and it was quite amazing.
Just to be sure that you know that there's no parking there. So what I recommend doing is if you go to there's like an overflow parking lot. I think it's like lot 3. That's just before you go into the Riverside parking. That's probably your best bet to just walk back to the old Ausable Channel from there.
So for comfort stations, there's one in the Riverside campground. Theoretically, it has laundry, flush toilets, and showers. Now, the winter information didn't actually mention the laundry, so we weren't sure if it's actually open or not. We were only there a day, so we didn't need to use the laundry at all.
A day this time. We were there longer for the other winter trip, we should say.
Right. The other toilet buildings are in the area. We're assuming they're vault toilets. We did see ones that were marked out of order, though.
Yeah, so we didn't go in and check those out.
Right. There is a comfort station in the parking area for the park store, and that does have flush toilets. We didn't use it this time, but we used it back in May, and it was in a really good condition at that time.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the park store, there's 2 park stores in Pinery Park, and I actually forgot to go in and check to see if the main one's open in the off-season. That was huge. I can't imagine that it is open, but the second one is in the visitor center. Now, the visitor center is open on weekends in the winter, and then all week for the Christmas break and March break, they're open daily. It is limited hours. I think it was like 10 to 4, but there's a little gift store in there. And I guess now that I've mentioned the store, we should probably talk about the visitor center. Yeah. So the visitor center, it being open in the winter is actually kind of cool because I don't think any of the other ones are. Like, I'm trying to think back to any of them, and they're all closed. Like, half the time, the visitor centers are closed for the fall also. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's cool that one's open throughout the winter. Like I said, it is only on weekends. We didn't go in this time, but we did visit in May, and it was beautiful. It had the museum like set up and everything, big open area. You talked to a staff member about turtles that you saw.
It was great. She totally geeked out and loved talking about turtles. I think we made her day being interested in turtles.
Yeah, she was actually way into it. Like, it wasn't that she had a script, because you know how sometimes you go to like a museum type thing and you know that you hit on like a script for them to go over. It wasn't like that. She was way into turtles, and it was really cool. Anyways, yeah, so that beautiful area. Kind of hard to get up to with the big ramp, but worth it.
Yep.
Finally, there's rentals. There's not much to talk about for rentals. During the winter, they do have skis and snowshoes, but they only do it on the weekends. And I think that's out of the same area as the park store, but I'm not entirely sure on that because it wasn't operational when we were there.
Okay, so the day use area, only beach P9 is open. The rest of them are completely gated off. You can't even get access to them at all.
Well, I mean, you can walk the length of the beach. There's like something like 11 kilometers of beach, though. So,
Right, sorry, you can't drive there at all.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's your access, beach P9. There is a really cool picnic shelter there with a really nice grill setup if that hits your interest. If you're going from the parking lot to the beach, you're going to expect about a 300-meter walk. It's really wide, but it's not really plowed very well, so it does have uneven footing.
I just realized I said 11 kilometers of beach. This might have been the 3 kilometers of beach. I don't know. We get to so many parks that I might have completely misspoke. So don't take that. There's a lot of beach at Pinery. I have no idea how much at this point. Sorry about that. I'm so knowledgeable.
Well, if you walk that beach in winter, it's going to feel like 100 kilometers.
Oh, it definitely would. That is a rough beach in winter because even when we went last February and there was no winter to be had anywhere, there was a whole bunch of ice pushed up on the beach and it was gorgeous. But it was only winter we got there, you know. But it doesn't make for easy walks. So yeah, 3 kilometers, 11 kilometers, it's going to be a workout one way or the other. And if you're looking to get from one beach from P9 to P1, it's going to be a hike either way. So anyway, in addition to the beach, there's also these little picnic nooks that we noticed on the spring trip. We hadn't noticed them on the first trip. But it's as you drive the main road from the front of the campground to the riverside area along Old Ossable Channel, there's these little, I guess, little loop driveways that go along the river. And each little loop has like a picnic table and a little grill. And most of them have a little stairway that goes down to the channel. So we saw a lot of people pulled over having their picnic and then fishing from the bottom of the staircase. So that was really cool. They weren't gated off or anything this time, and we'd seen tracks that people were using them. I don't know how much people are going to be picnicking in the winter. And I don't think they allow ice fishing down there, but I guess you could probably go down there and get some really cool views also. So that is technically day use area that's available. So I guess now we'll talk about campsite details. There's over 1,200 campsites in Pinery, and only a handful of them in one campground are available for booking in the winter months. That's all in the Riverside campground, which is 4 campgrounds itself, 4 areas, but only one is open.
Yeah, so you go down this main road, and you've got these little, basically loops that you're going down. We talked a little earlier how they were not plowed out at all.
And not great signage.
Right, not great signage as well. The sites are not really plowed out either. So some of them, of course, people had already camped there. It was pretty obvious where it was and how to get in there. Otherwise, you're just kind of on your own. And
they're also this, like, I've noticed that they're mostly pull-through sites, but they are some of the shortest pull-through sites I think I've seen in provincial parks.
They are short. Our setup, we have a motorhome towing a car, and I had to go on a curve in order to fit both of them in there in our site. But we were on the end of the aisle, so ours might have been a little shorter. But
they're all pretty short, though. The distance between the roads are not very long. So just be sure to plan for that. And where a lot of, I find that a lot of the provincial park sites, when they say, you know, we'll accommodate up to whatever, they're being very conservative, and you can usually bring something longer than that. I would not make that bet with Pinery. At least not with the winter camping.
And a slight pet peeve on our spot, the electrical hookup was on the wrong side, and it just seems like weird. Like, why would you? It seems
annoying. You had mentioned that before.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's big open area. There's not a lot of privacy, but there's also not a lot of campers, so it kind of doesn't really matter, I find.
Right.
You know, there's also some roofed accommodations. I'm not entirely clear of how much, like how many yurts there are and cabins and stuff, because there was some definite discrepancies between website map and reality. So I guess unless you're looking at the booking page, who knows? There might be 6, there might be 12. The cabins aren't even mentioned anywhere. It's just the yurts on one thing. I think it was the winter. The winter camping doesn't mention cabins at all. It just mentions the yurts. But then the website mentions there's yurts and cabins, and there are definitely cabins. We saw them. They're all really cute. I guess not much to say for that. They're pretty standard yurts and cabins.
They looked in great condition. They looked really nice.
And then I guess one thing I should mention back to the car camping though is that I believe all of the sites that are available for winter camping are all electrical. It doesn't look like any sites in that section are non-electric. So I guess that's all I've really got to say about the campground. I mean, there's not much to say. It's kind of like you just pull up. There's not really any attraction in the campground. It's not particularly pretty or private or like ambiance. It's just kind of like oh, it's somewhere to stay.
Right, you're
while
going
you're
there.
visiting everything else.
You're going there for the beach, the hiking, the skiing, whatever, and you're just staying there.
Yeah, like some of the summer campground areas, I think are a lot nicer and a lot more woodsy and pretty and camping. And this just kind of seems like it's a spot to park your RV while you do other stuff.
Yep.
So that's about that.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the kinds of things you can do at Pinery in the winter. There's hiking and snowshoeing and skiing and whatnot, birding. Let's start out with hiking. So there's 3 trails. They've got a ton of trails in this park, but only 3 of them are open in the winter. It's Cedar, Heritage, and Sassafras. Now, if you look at the website, it doesn't mention Sassafras, and there's no information on that trail existing at all on the site, which is annoying, but whatever. Anyway, we'll look at these individual trails. So first off is the Cedar Trail. It's 2.3 kilometers long, which is not including an extension off it, which is closed during the winter, so that doesn't really matter. This one sets off from just right next to the visitor center, so there's tons of parking going into it, and it's a great place for birding. I have not walked this one in the winter because I happen to be having tendon problems at the time of this trip. What did you think of the trail?
I think it's a lovely walk through the woods. So the beginning portion, you're seeing the visitor center to the side and some of the birding, like you mentioned over there. As you go a little deeper, there weren't as many birds, at least not for me. And
that was the case in the spring too, though.
Yeah, that's how I.
It was like there was a ton right by in May, there were a ton of birds right around the visitor. They must have feeders out.
Yeah,
there were just tons of birds by the visitor center, and then nothing in the woods.
Yeah, so you keep going, and it's a really nice walk. And I stayed to the left to kind of take a shorter branch of it and went down to the water. You end up on this nice little overlook, nice wooden dock area kind of section. And you can actually go down to the water level dock, which is really kind of fun, And in the winter, it's frozen over and you're tempted to go, hey, I wonder if this is, good enough to walk on.
No.
And I was not brave enough to even try that. So
there are signs everywhere telling you not to, because it's a spring-fed river and apparently it does not freeze over properly. So just do not go on.
But that's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up, because it looked tempting, but there's no way I would do that. So
yeah, well, I mean, I would say we should specifically say, like, you are not supposed to go out there. Anyway, the next one is the Heritage Trail. Now, we've done the Heritage Trail at least twice. We did one. I think we did. We didn't do it in the spring, but we did it last winter when there was no snow on the ground. So this one's 2.5 kilometers long. It's kind of near the beach area. Like you have to. It's a fair drive because it's kind of across from that P9 beach area. 2.5 kilometers long, and there's a 0.6 kilometer extension that takes you out to a viewing platform over the old Ausable Channel. And basically, it's Oak Savannah. So. Again, I did not walk this one in the winter, but Porter did.
Yeah, so again, I kind of beeline towards the overlook, but what I noticed on the way there was probably for about half the trail that I went, about a half kilometer, there were deer prints everywhere and fresh deer prints. And there were deer prints going parallel with the trail as if somebody was walking their pet deer, and there were deer prints crossing it repeatedly. I was looking everywhere. I wanted to find them so bad, but I didn't see any.
Why don't we have a pet deer?
I don't know why we don't have a pet deer.
We should probably get a pet deer. I want a raccoon first. But anyways.
So that kept me very interested. Again, a lovely walk through the woods, and you get this nice outlook over the water. It's all great to see, and I had a good hike, but I was, I guess, I felt a little teased. Like, I know they're close because it must have been in the last few hours based on the fresh prints on the snow. So maybe next time.
Yeah. So, and then the last one is the Sassafras Trail. Now, Sassafras Trail is, as I said, it's not listed on the website at all. The only information we could find for it is at the trailhead itself, which is bizarre to me because this trail has a gorgeous trailhead sign with lots of information and everything. But they could, like, I mean, you got to put some effort into designing and making a sign, and it takes literally like 2 seconds to update a website. So I don't know what's up with that. But anyways, this trail is across from the not the comfort station. What am I saying? The
dump station.
The dump station. It is 1 kilometer long per the signage. It looked like it might be longer than a kilometer, and we've noticed on other trails, like a lot of the ones that aren't open for the winter, is that there were some major discrepancies between the website listing for the trail trailhead information on length, and what Map My Run said the actual length was when we walked the whole thing. So it's supposed to be 1 kilometer long. You didn't do the entire trail this time,
right?
So we're not entirely sure of that. But what did you think of it?
So yeah, once again, I went right for the overlook because I wanted to get that really cool view. So it's a little bit more challenging than the other trails, as in the terrain is a little bit rougher.
And the snow probably didn't help.
The snow didn't help. Overall, it was probably more of a moderate trail until you get to the stairs. There are a lot of stairs going up. Each step is it's a small step, and it's a nice staircase and everything. They didn't shovel it at all, which I wouldn't really expect them to. But I guess the warning is if it were icy or if there was a lot of snow buildup, those stairs would not be very safe. And since there are so many, I'm going to guess a ballpark 100 of them.
Wow, really?
It was a lot. It felt like, because you go up a section and then.
But is this a winter 100? Like, is it that there was 50 and it just felt like 100, or do you think it was close to 100?
I think it was close to 100. I mean,
Okay.
maybe more like 80. I didn't count them. Because you go up a section, you go for a flat area for a bit, and then you go up some more.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that's what made it feel like a lot. But yeah, if mobility is an issue at all, just know that there's a lot of steps there, and if the weather isn't going to cooperate, it's not worth it. The view, if it's dangerous, right? It was fun to see. You could see the waterway off in the distance. I don't think it would be as good of a view in summer just because of the tree foliage.
Yeah.
I liked it, but it was kind of one of those, it's neat, cool.
We are honestly spoiled, though, because, like, we've been to, what's the word I'm looking for? That national park, Bruce Peninsula, several times, and Quetico, and I think we've seen a lot of really good trails, and now it kind of, I think the nice walk through woods kind of, I don't want to say gets old, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard to get, like, really excited about it when you've been to, like, Indian Head Cove or something, so...
Right, I agree, but I don't want to oversell it. It's a nice walk. It's a nice
Plus,
view,
it's enough.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay, so next up is birding, wildlife, and nature, because you mentioned the deer.
I did.
Another thing the park is known for, allegedly, is flying squirrels.
Oh, we have tried to see the flying squirrel several times, and once again, when I was on the trail next to the visitor center, I was looking for them. Did not see them.
Well, it was daytime when you went this time.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to bring a blacklight flashlight at night to see them. I don't know if there's a seasonality to this, but now we've gone in January, February, and May, and we have not seen them. So we're going to say they allegedly exist. Now, the park is really known for birds in the spring with the spring migration. We haven't, I think that was before we actually really got into birding, though.
I think so.
So winter-wise, because I know when I'd mentioned our winter camping before, we'd said, there were some birds we couldn't identify. I think that was before we got into like the apps and whatnot for identification, got a better camera and whatnot. So anyways, this time around for birding, I was shocked when we pulled up to our campsite. There were a ton of birds like right there. So Porter had gone inside, of course, because he's the one with the big camera. He missed, there were a bunch of chickadees, which we always love. And then a blue jay flew in. And then I looked up in the same bush from the blue jay, and there was a bright red cardinal right there. And then there were a few dark-eyed juncos. And then he came out and all he saw were the juncos. So that was kind of not cool. Did see some kind of hawk on one of the trails.
Right, the Heritage Trail. I went back the next day to try to find deer, and some kind of hawk flew away. I didn't get a good enough look to be able to see what kind.
But you did see something new.
I did. At the visitor center, I saw a tufted titmouse.
Saw several of them.
Several of them, you're right.
And we're still debating, did you see tufted titmice or tufted titmouses?
Mouses, yeah.
I'm assuming mice.
I
But then they're
don't.
not mice. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the plural is, but there were several there, as well as tons of chickadees. They're always adorable. I don't care how common they are; they're super
They're
cute.
so cute. Well, they're so friendly and outgoing and funny.
Yep.
Like I'll always personality over whatever.
And I did see dark-eyed junco and cardinal there as well.
Oh, so you did finally see one. Did you see any blue jays then?
I didn't see blue jays.
No.
Crows.
So
Crows are around.
I win. Well, no, because you saw the tufted mice.
Mice, mouses, mousy.
Mousies? I was going to say that too. Anyway, next up is cross country skiing, which we didn't actually do. We did our cross country skiing in McGregor, and the snow wasn't really deep enough to do it at Pinery when we were there. The trails, so they were declared to be not open on the snow website, on the snow report, but people clearly had been skiing on them anyway, so I think people were just impatient and knowing that they might not get a chance otherwise.
Yep.
So there are several trails. There's the Ossable Trail. So all told, there's like 38 kilometers of trails here. The Ossable Trail is 4.7 kilometers long, track set classic skiing, and it's medium difficulty. The Dune Ridge Trail is a 9.4 kilometer track set classic skiing trail. And it's supposed to be the most difficult of the park's trails. Huron Trail is 9.6 kilometer track set classic, medium difficulty. Chickadee Trail, I made note of that one because the name obviously goes kind of around the Riverside campground. That one is 4.2 kilometer track set classic and is rated as easy. And then the Skate Ski Trail is an 11 kilometer trail. I think basically that one goes along the big campground road because the main campground road is closed down just outside of Riverside towards that second dump station. And that's where that one goes. Anyways, that one's 11 kilometer trail and it's groomed for skate skiing, which looks like a ton of fun, but I don't think you can do that on the kind of skis we have.
No.
But anyway, so apparently, so the thing is, there's a weird discrepancy when it comes to the cross-country skiing here. The park website says that it's got some of the best cross-country skiing in the area, right? And then when we called the park office a few weeks ago to ask like what the situation was with the snowing, she sounded like she really didn't think that there was going to be any winter activities this year. And then she told me, she went on to say that they usually don't end up having winter activities. Like they don't usually end up opening the skiing and stuff, which seemed really bizarre to me. Because like last year, okay, it was warm, whatever. And I said, well, we'd been watching the snow report last year and we never did see it. Did you guys ever end up opening for skiing? And she thought like for a good minute and she's like, I don't think we did. It's like if we opened up, it was probably for a couple days. So it's just interesting to me that they put themselves off as one of the best cross-country skiing places in the area. And the park staff's like, I don't know if we're going to have skiing this year. To say that they usually don't.
Yeah, so, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Anyway, same with the snowshoeing. There was probably enough snow to go snowshoeing this time. But we were definitely trying to take in the sights and stuff before the rain started. Basically, snowshoeing is along any of the walking trails, so you could have done it on Heritage or whatever, right? And any of the ungroomed roadways and trails. So I guess that means through the campground too. Anyway, the last winter activity is tobogganing. Kind of hard to find. Like I said, the tobogganing area is not actually indicated on the winter map for some reason, which didn't help things. But once you do find it, it's a cute little trail. It's a cute little toboggan run. It's just kind of a hill that ends at the bottom, like a very short bottom. It's not a growing up in Winnipeg, it's pretty flat. So we had our toboggan runs were usually these like big wooden slide structure things that you had to go up.
Oh yeah.
This was an actual hill. But yeah, it's pretty short. It's cute enough. There wasn't a really easy way up it. Like the side was kind of narrow. There was the flat packed area that I think must have been groomed flat packed somehow. But there wasn't a lot of area off to the side for walking up. And then at the bottom of the hill, there was what looked to be an ice rink. Like they had the boards and everything, but there was no ice there. So I don't know if that was at some point a rink and they just gave up on it. And there's a winter chalet that's lit during the evening, and it's open every day through the winter as long as the conditions are there for tobogganing. And it was cute. There's washrooms in there and it's heated. So
Yeah. So a lot of
Yeah.
activities if it's open.
If it's open, yeah. When they say weather permitting, they mean good luck.
Yes.
So unlike a lot of the other parks, they actually do run a bit of a discovery program through the winter at Pinery Provincial Park. We saw signage at the Comfort Station, and they also had some at the chalet, if I remember correctly. I saw it in the second place. It's only on weekends, and it's usually at the visitor center. But they have like Ask a Naturalist, and they've got guided snowshoe hikes and stuff. And it's cool that they offer that in the winter. Um, they have a Turtle Talk listed as for January 25th, and it says Turtle Talk in big caps, and join a park naturalist at the visitor center to talk about turtles.
I bet that's
That's what I was going to say. Like, I bet it was that one that.
Friend.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's cute and that's cool that that's available. So that's something to keep in mind if you're bringing the kids. And then finally, there's the Niantic games. So that was so the Niantic games issue is kind of weird because one of our other stays, like we couldn't play at all. Like there was no reception. We couldn't tell you where the portals were or the Poke Gyms or whatever. And like this time there was not a problem at all. So you may or may not be able to get to play.
Yep.
If you're there during it. The visitor center is basically the big area for it. And I remember when we didn't have good reception that there was decent reception at the visitor center sometimes.
Okay.
But that's where there was a concentration of Pokestops, gyms, whatever. So I wouldn't recommend staying there during an important event.
Yeah. But if you're there, there's portals around.
To get your dailies, yeah.
Yep. If you've got connection, then you should be fine to play a little bit.
Yep. So I don't really have anything else to say about activities. How about you?
Nope. I think that wraps it up.
Cool.
All right. So final thoughts for Pinery in the winter.
I think so. As I said, I think that this review came out kind of negative. I think there's a park for everyone, and Pinery is ridiculously popular. Like, there's no denying that it is one of the most popular parks out there. I think I'm not a Pinery person. I think, we've gone 3 times now. We've had 3 very different experiences there. The first time we said that, based on the stories we'd heard about people camping in the summer, like we did not want to do it in the summer. We definitely didn't want to do it over a long weekend. And then I kind of screwed up and booked us over a long weekend. And I think we found that we are not long weekend Pinery campers. We're not people. So, 1,200 campsites and whatnot and the logistical nightmare. The roads it was just not our thing, right? Which is fine. There are plenty of people that was totally great for, you know? And we said, I think we prefer the winter, even though nothing was open.
Yeah.
Because last time there was 2 trails open and nothing else was open. That we'd want to see it during winter. And now we've seen it during winter. And I don't know. I know I get more annoyed. I probably sound totally retentive about the whole logistics thing, but like, there's so many little annoyances about Pinery and just stuff like it being hard to get to your campsite and stuff because there's no plowing done and whatnot. The front staff is kind of a bit of attitude, And that was the second time we'd had attitude there because the first time someone in the park store was like really snippy with me. And I think it was because I was masking. And it's like, I'm a cancer patient. Like, I'm going to wear a mask. And it was just like, I don't like being treated like there's something wrong with me because I'm wearing a mask during a big pandemic, And I got to say, like, that doesn't happen anywhere else. Like, we go to all kinds of provincial parks and we don't get any attitude about that. So it was just weird. And then to get a bit of attitude this time, it just, I don't know, there's a vibe and it's not my vibe, like in the summer it's way too busy. And in the winter it was weirdly desolate and just kind of neglected, I think,
Yeah, overall, I like the park. I definitely don't love it. The epic sunsets are something to check out, whether you're there in the summer or the winter. It's a lovely beach. It's got nice hiking. If the weather had been a little better, we could have gone cross-country skiing and things like that. Like, it has these nice features, and the toboggan run's kind of cool, even though I didn't have one with me. But I like the idea of it. But it doesn't have, it doesn't bring it all together in a great way. It doesn't click for me either.
The camping seems like an afterthought to me. Like it seems like it's like we acknowledge that we're out in the middle of nowhere for a lot of people, so we'll have a campground open. Expect the bare minimum put into it. Like we're not going to give you maps. We're not going to, plow the roads. And it's just like I said earlier. I think it's less that the park is not my thing because the park is lovely.
Yeah.
I think people ruin it. As with most things, people ruin it for me. So in the summer, it's just that there's too many people, and in the winter, it's just that the decision making of the park in terms of the I don't even know if it's the park staff or if it's Ontario Parks, but I just feel like there's some weird decision making that just kind of makes it off putting to me, you know? And just where there's so many other parks that you can go to, not so many, there's a handful of parks that are
Right.
open for winter camping.
Yep.
But when it comes down to it, it's 2 hours away from McGregor.
Yep.
And McGregor's great. So it's like, why would we?
That's the thing is I like Pinery. I love McGregor. So if we're gonna spend our time, out in the RV in the winter, I'm gonna say, hey, let's go to McGregor instead.
Yeah, and also, and I mean, I can't really hold this against Pinery, but I should mention it just for anyone listening, is that if you're coming from the GTA, getting to and from Pinery in the winter, it can be a bit of an ordeal. Like it's a lot of back roads and not the best conditions, and our drive back was kind of harrowing. So I know with getting to McGregor, it's a lot more main highways, like almost right up to the last minute. So it feels safer and less stressful to get to than Pinery, and they're probably about the same driving distance. I think McGregor's a little bit further, but it felt less stressful to get to it,
Yeah, I agree.
So just something, what I mean? I just feel kind of like it's like death by a thousand paper cuts. Like I'd never say a park isn't worth going to because the signage sucks or
Right.
whatever, but it just seems like there's so many little things that I kind of just have like a kind of view on Pinery. And I think it would be different if we had like a young family and a bunch of kids and loved going out on the beach in the summer and loved dealing with other people and everything else. Like I just think for us, I think I just judge everything off of McGregor.
I agree. I'm with you there.
So I guess that's basically it. I'm a meh on Pinery, and I don't know that I'd bother going back at this point. I think we've given it 3 tries, and I'm just gonna
I agree. Same place.
Cool. Anyway, stay tuned for our next one, and hopefully we get a happy review of something.
Check out our blog where we've got all this information laid out and photos and everything in text format, if that's your thing. And we'll see.
Yeah, and I promise that our reviews in general aren't as negative as this one. But if you don't want to hear negative reviews, don't look for our McLeod Provincial Park review because that one's not very nice either.
Spoilers!
Spoilers! Well, no, I don't think any amount of saying it's not very nice could possibly spoil what happened at that park. Like, I really don't. So, but it's just like if you want like the glowing reviews, like look at our Quetico entry.
Definitely.
Anyways, so that's enough for now. I think I could use some sleep after that trip. So
I can't blame you. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.